it's an ongoing nightmare. Now that the other subdivision on the other side of the railroad tracks have their streets in, they're gonna start building, they're gonna start using water. Hopefully you guys are looking, I talked to Leon in links about the new system going in on Lancaster. I would hope that the city council looks at that prior to adding any more homes into Rathdrum, because they put a water moratorium up there on Gosser this year.
Up on where?
Up by Gosser, on the other side of the lake, up on the hill, because they can't get water. And now we know that Spokane has televised it, Coeur d'Alene has televised it, the newspapers are televising it, the Spokane River, and like I said, I talked to Leon about this for numerous hours now. And until we get that new system off Lancaster, please look at slowing down building homes, because Lord help us if another 450 homes go in, Brookshire is gonna be trickling water between 4 and 10 until we get that new system in. So I would think that the city council would rather get the system in instead of listening to us complain week after week after week. That's all I got.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Gone. 7, there are no ceremonies or reports. 8, new business action item, a consideration of adoption of the 25-26 City of Rathdrum personnel policy. Mr. Deuce.
Mr. Mayor and Council, before you is the personnel policy. I want to address a few items that came up in some questions, as well as what we have here on my memo at the front of the personnel policy. So first was a general question that John had asked me this week in regards to employees' contributions to the personnel policy. When we pass this personnel policy every single year, we go through the year, and as things come up, employees have questions, or there's things that we need to address and fix, then over 50% of all of our edits come from employee information. The critical part is it's never important until it's important. I think that's the big thing, and that's why we address this personnel policy every single year, is because unless you're experiencing something, you don't know that there's a problem. And so we look at that, we evaluate that, we review it, and we talk about that. So a lot of these changes are either come up because employees have a question about it, we need clarification, and we make that clarification. If it's critical enough, then we would bring it to the city council immediately to get approval. If it's something that just, this doesn't make sense, we can fix it, we can understand what we're going to do about it in the meantime, and we move forward. And then we present these edits to you on an annual basis. And that gives us the ability to call this a living document that basically gets modified and edited every single year. Going down through my memo, some of these things I'll address a little bit more, others are just short. So for example, on page 4 or 5, we include the term probationary. That was because some people were using the word introductory period, and some people were using the word probationary period. They meant the same thing, so we wanted to include them. That was an employee requested update. Again, not critical, but does provide clarification. Investigations on page 9, we updated some language on that to include any other policy within the personnel policy or any other adopted city or department policy. We wanted to make sure that all policies were included in this process of investigations. There was questions about who does an investigation when an employee from any department has any issues. Who do they go to? This is the section that says they come to me. and there will be an investigation on this. This includes things like sexual harassment, things like that, or anything that they have that needs to be investigated. One of the things, as I've talked to the mayor about, is in the future, when we have an HR director, then that HR director would be the one that would handle those type of things, because they're kind of separated from everything. They're not a department head. They're specialized in that. In the new city hall, we already have a room, an office designated as an HR room that has more of a private entrance, if you will, than just the regular entrance that comes through the admin. That way, if somebody has an issue, they can go to the HR director without raising a whole bunch of flags to the rest of the admin department when they go through there. So that covers one of the questions that I had as well. Page 16, the employee status, we're adding a sentence that says appointed officials for city shall be subject to the attached appointment officer policy, because we're creating a separation between normal employees and appointed employees. We needed to have a clarification that the appointed officials are subject to the appointed official policy. We'll get into that when we get to that at the end. On page 25 to 26, we changed the wording on there. Make sure I get there. Instead of temporary appointments, we call them temporary promotions now, because appointments would lead you to believe that they're appointed officials. And we don't want to have that confusion in that moving forward as well. This was a concern that came up from one of when we had an appointed official that was gone and an employee was going to take over temporary acting duties. Wasn't officially an appointed position, it was just somebody acting on behalf of. The 26, we added a statement about the uniform policy. The departments have put together a uniform policy based off of our budgeting process, where we allocated dollars to basically each employee through the budgeting process. So we have a policy of how that is going to be used. It's department policy, so it's not included in this one in full, but it talks about all of the things that they need for a uniform and how to use those dollars.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Leon, can we go back to, 15 on page 25? That's 52 of the packet for those following along. I just noticed that we're crossing out director and leaving head. Is there a reason that we're changing the vernacular there?
Yeah, because we don't call anyone a department director, we call them department head. So
Okay.
it's more of a housekeeping issue to keep it clean. Okay. On page 27, we talk about the PTO and how the PTO can be cashed out. First of all, there's a change on page 27 that clarifies instead of no more than 2 weeks, we changed that to 80 hours off. The reason why we did that is because we'd have an individual that would take 1 week and then 1 week on and then 1 week off and 1 week on and 1 week off, because it was never 2 weeks consecutive. And so we talked about doing it as 80 hours. Give PTO in any 8-week period. Just for clarification, this came up from an employee that said that I'm confused about this. This allows then other people to take PTO time off, and it works with the scheduling. Okay. Down at the bottom of page 27, need to give you a little bit of history on this. Back in 2016 timeframe, the city had 2 leave banks. They had a vacation leave bank and they had a sick leave bank. On the vacation leave bank, you can accrue so many hours based off of your longevity, similar to what we have today. The max that you could have, use it or lose it policy, was 240 hours. That time could be cashed out and given to the employee at separation, whether it was termination, retirement, or just plain old separation. We also had a sick leave. Sick leave accumulated at 8 hours a month, and there was no cap on that, but it was not available for cash out at the end of your employment. When we combined the sick leave and the vacation due to some concerns of employees taking a regular 8 hours a month off and creating scheduling issues, we combined it and said you could use this time however you wanted to use this time. If you wanted a day off for mental health, you could take a day off for mental health. We found that those employees that were using that 8 hours a month were at work more frequently, okay? But we left it with the cash out at 240 because that was the policy in the past. Cash outs require a high investment in a city's liability of paying out that. Recently, about a year and a half ago, we had an employee that was retiring that had a lot more than 240 hours. Yes, sir, Mr. Owens over there. So we were trying to get a way to provide a little bit more of a cash out on this policy. So we proposed, and this was a proposal that was in there since last year, that we allow them to cash out 100 extra hours that would officially kind of been out of that sick leave bank and can put that into a contribution into a VEBA plan. Now, a VEBA plan is for medical leave, medical things. When you separate employment, you can use it for premiums. You can use it for doctor visits. You can use it for eyeglasses. You can do it for dental exams, whatever you wanted to use it for. So in doing this, when you make a contribution into their VEBA plan, 100% of the dollars that's tax-free would go into that. So if you're earning $20 an hour and you had 100 hours, that would be $2,000 contributed into your VEBA with no tax penalties on that. Okay, so we put that in there so that we would have a ability to cash out a little bit more. I did have a request that we change that and make that bigger for the longer that you're here. Meaning, instead of just 240 hours, you could cash out 300 hours or 400 hours or something like that. In order to do that, we have two things that we're gonna have to do. We check the legality of it to make sure that it's legal. And then also we check to see what the liability of that would be, because we're gonna have to budget for that liability. When the auditor comes and makes the adjustments, he's going to take a certain amount out of benefits to fill that liability line item. So there will be a budgeting requirement. So we'll look at that over the course of this next year, and we'll determine, one, is it legal? And two, if it is legal, that we can budget for it in the next budget cycle. The other request that I thought I heard when it first got brought up to me was, can we do a VEBA contribution like we do the PTO? And I interpreted that as, if you're here for 1 to 5 years, you got $20 in your VEBA every pay period or every month. And then if you're here from 6 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 or 16 plus, those increments would go up. We looked at that again, it would cost the city money, so if you did it per month, it would be equivalent of $1,400 a month, or just under $17,000 for a year. We did check with VEBA on that. That is something that we can do, but again, we would have to wait until we budgeted for such an expense before we could actually implement that expense. And I hope that covers the questions on that so far.
I have one, Leon. Is there a
Yes.
cap on how much can be put into the VEBA?
I'd have to check, because the VEBA policy is supposed to treat employees equally. So, for example, as a city administrator, I couldn't get a $5,000 bump and nobody else could. So I'd have to check on what the caps and what those requirements are. Currently, for our employees that use the high deductible and a balance out, it's $300 a month with those with family plans. It's $190 a month for those that are single on the plan. And if you have other qualifying insurance, say your parents have insurance on you or something like that, then you get the value of the premium for a single high deductible plan contributed to that. These VEBA plans are no cost to the employer to create or the employee. It's a matter of filling out a one-page document with your information and sending it into Viva, and you can create this plan. So even on these cash outs, if they don't have a Viva plan right now, it's a one-page document, 5 minutes to fill out, no expense to the employees to get it.
So could we find out if that 240 hours that can be cashed out, can that all be put into the VIBA account?
I can check and find out.
Because that might be a nice option.
Are you saying at the, so rather than the employee receiving that 240 hours cash out, that they receive that 240 hours
Yeah, they would
contributed?
have the option of putting that into the VIBA to use for just medical expenses that are tax-free.
Okay.
Well, I'll have to check. I'll ask them the question and see what their response is.
We were just briefly, he had asked me if you'd talked to me about his email just prior to the meeting. Can we have this something that's brought up with the benefits committee?
Yes, we can. And I plan
And
on
workshop
asking
that there.
Viva all of the questions prior to going to the benefits committee too, so that I can have that as information, whether or not we can or can't legally, or
Sure.
all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think
So I'll
that's
get those
a good
answers.
place to kind of workshop that and see where.
What the employees wanna see?
Yep.
No, that works out great. Thank you. Page 31, adding language for a reasonable accommodation request made by the employees. We're starting to see more and more of reasonable requests. It is protected by the ADA, and we needed to add a policy on this for that. This is one of them that wasn't generated by employees, but generated by law. Okay. Page 36, item F, adding a definition for probation. Again, making sure that we're clear on what those are. 36 through 38, we changed this as of October 1st. Jody is now the department head for admin and finance. I'm no longer a department head, but solely a city administrator. The clause that we struck was what happens if I was the department head making those actions, what would that process be? And we don't need that anymore because I'm no longer a department head, but solely as a city administrator. Okay?
Sorry, Leon.
Yes.
Would there need to be a clause for you as the city administrator to take action on a department head? So you're saying that this relates to a department head to their employees, but what about you to your employees?
I get the question, I hadn't thought about that. For now, we could leave that in there and reject that change until we research it out a little bit further. So in a motion, if that's the desire of the council, then just put that as part of the motion. I hadn't thought about that. Thanks, John. Appendix A, our computer policy. Get to the right one. Yep. We made some housekeeping changes on this, as well as adding a ChatGPT or AI usage policy. This particular policy is a very basic policy. Emily and I both attended a training about a week and a half ago with the Association of Idaho Cities, and one of the topics was AI. There's a lot more information that we received, and City of Boise is actually working on an AI policy. And they are going to send that to us to review that, to expand the AI policy. One of the things that is important to note, that all prompts by staff and by elected officials as well are subject to public records law. So we're looking at also the possibility of getting an enterprise edition of AI that would track the prompts, so that in any public records requests that we receive, we wouldn't have to go to each person individually to get those records from them, we'd be able to pull it in the Enterprise Edition, so we're gonna be looking at that as well. Appendix C, this was something that came out of a lot of the council's discussion as well as employees. So we've created a new section for vehicle accident procedure if it's any other circumstance that does not involve private individuals or personal property. I know it's been some time, but we had several discussions as a council last year in regards to this. And so we've incorporated it into our personnel policy as well. Appendix E, our drug-free workplace policy, we just updated some employee rights and obligations. One of the things that with this, when we do drug testing, we do drug testing through a urine sample. In some drug situations, the person may not be intoxicated, but the drug may still be in their urine. And therefore, if they failed that drug test, they would be able on their own dime to get like a blood test and be able to submit that as evidence that they're not intoxicated. As well as if we had someone with law enforcement that could test them, then we could do that as well, but we wanted to have options.
Leon,
Yes, sir.
do you guys do split samples for secondary testing for validation? Do you guys send it off?
I would have to read through our policy, I'm not sure. The drug testing is done through immediate care. And I know that they have certain requirements, especially with DOT, that they have to comply with if it's a DOT test. But if it's not a DOT test, I don't know what it is that we do. So DOT tests have a whole other list of requirements.
Okay.
I know they do split testing with DOT tests because that's
Okay.
required by federal law.
Okay.
But I don't know about the other employees.
There was a comment that was made, I was kind of questioning a little bit about our drug and alcohol policy, and your comment to me was that only the employee's supervisor may perform a reasonable suspicion test. I'd like to challenge that shouldn't be just the employee's supervisor, that it should be any supervisor is qualified to, or that has been trained to perform reasonable suspicion testing.
Okay. Is me
It's
get
at the
to
top of page 54.
okay. Page 54. Sorry, I'm
It says an employee and a supervisor has reasonable suspicion.
okay.
So that just
Right
says
now, it does say a supervisor, not their supervisor.
Okay.
So I would believe you would be right, Mayor, on that, and
So-
I appreciate the correction.
Okay, so this does make it to where any supervisor that's trained in
Yeah, it
reasonable
just says
suspicion.
a supervisor.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Then we get to the appointed officer policy. There was a couple questions that was on this. So, on section 4, at will, it says, unless specifically agreed to in writing and approved by the city council, appointed officers are at-will employees, and I'll just do ... for the rest of that. The reason that statement is there is because there is the possibility of contracting with an appointed official. For example, in the city code for the city administrator, it allows that a contract can be entered into for the city administrator position. Thus, a contract with also an outside sourced city attorney can be entered into. So since those are contracts, we need to have a clause in here for appointed officials that would allow you to have a contract for those city appointed.
Which one of the sections in G is that again?
Section 4, item A.
Okay.
Okay,
So I want to make sure that I'm reading that correctly, that what that says is that for an employee of the city that is an appointed position, it is an at-will employee.
it basically means that if you remove the appointment, you also remove their employment at the same time.
Okay.
All right. Section 5, there was a question in regards to the last part of that states the mayor and city council may conduct performance evaluations of appointed officials at their discretion. I believe, John, your question was, can we do this and say at least twice or once every 2 years
Yeah.
at a bare minimum?
Yeah.
In that particular case, that is a criteria on the elected officials, okay? You guys provide those evaluations, not the staff. This this policy is for the personnel of the city, not necessarily the council. Second item, it's very difficult to draft policy that governs what the elected officials can or cannot do. The reason for that is because in a personnel policy, if I violate the policy, I can be terminated, correct? If you guys violate the policy, you cannot be terminated unless you resign, you're recalled, or you lose your election, okay? So therefore, adopting a policy that governs what the elected officials does is basically fruitile.
That I'm maybe disconnected here. I'm not interpreting what that was regarding to. What this section is talking about is appointed officers or supervisors organized by the city organization. No, I'm in the wrong section.
You're in the right
Section
section.
five.
Is that the right
Yeah,
one?
section
Section
5,
five,
yeah.
last sentence.
Okay,
It's the last
therefore,
part of that
The
sentence.
last part.
there we go. The city council may conduct performance evaluations of appointed officers at their discretion. So that's saying that the council can conduct performance evaluations of I think there's 5 appointed officers.
Yes.
So
John's question was, can we add in language that says it must be done at least every 2
Yeah,
years?
my point is, you're already laying out a requirement of council by saying that we're able to do it? Or is that?
No, we're
Not
not.
a requirement.
Or is
to
it
May.
intended to
It's
be
not
more of a
directed.
notification to the appointed officials that this
It's
could
to
happen?
put the appointed official
Okay.
on notice that you guys, at your discretion, whether it's every month, every other year, can do
Can
evaluations
do.
of us.
So, and it's a May, so I think I'm trying to get to what you're saying there, because I have a big disconnect in those two
Okay,
things.
sure.
What I think I heard you say was that you can't regulate what the elected officials are doing, and when you're saying that by putting that requirement in there, that you are effectively saying that the elected officials must do these things at a minimum of this period, and so therefore if they don't, that they're failing to meet the requirements of the,
Right.
okay.
That's correct.
Right.
Took me a little while to get there, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So that being said, it also says the mayor and city council.
Right.
So we have to do that in unison, it can't be or, the mayor or city council, or is it and?
It says
You understand my
and.
question?
And I think the reason why that it says and in this particular space is because the mayor's the one that appoints, but the council confirms. The mayor can't appoint a city administrator alone. He has to do it with the agreement of the city council.
Nor remove.
And,
Or nor
and he, yeah, but the council can remove an appointed official without the mayor.
Right.
Yes, as a unanimous. vote.
It has to be unanimous.
Right, so that's the reason that it's
That it's
in conjunction.
Okay, okay.
And the council can request and require that an evaluation be performed. Even if the mayor doesn't want to, the council has the legislative authority to govern what happens. And then it's the mayor's responsibility to carry out the legislative decisions of the council.
Okay, so the mayor couldn't stonewall a review because they
That's
don't want to do
correct.
it? Okay.
Okay?
Good choice of words there, John.
Okay. There was, John, was there another question? I think I got all of your questions on the appointed official one.
I'm gonna look at the email.
Let me double check.
Section 6.
Oh, yes, sorry. Section 6 on the second line, removal of appointment pursuant to Idaho Code, Section 50-206, in consultation with the city attorney. John's question was if it was in regards to the city attorney, could we reach out to ICRIM? Yes, and that could be a modification that I would request to put in the motion as well, that it would be the city or attorney, or if at the removal of the city attorney, the city could consult with their current liability insurance provider. Did I say it slow enough that you could get that on there, John? Because I saw you writing, so.
No, I'm a slow writer.
I can provide assistance when it comes time for the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, and that is a good point, that if we are removing the city attorney's appointment, that we should consult with somebody. You could consult with the city administrator, or you could consult with the ICRIM. You could direct the city administrator to consult with ICRIM. But I don't wanna put ICRIM in there, because if in the future ICRIM is not our current liability, then we'd have to change the policy.
Yeah, and I think that's what I said. Yeah, in my email I said iCrimp or current.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, and I'd just rather keep it clean and just say current.
Leon, with this, it also says that, the officer will be provided an opportunity to address the mayor and city council and present information concerning his or her pending removal. I'll reference back to a removal of a appointed official for the city of Rathdrum that was not afforded that opportunity. And that in a similar situation, I mean, I think that was the appropriate action, so I concerned that the way that this is written, that it says will be provided,
We could change that to may be, rather than as a,
but then you're picking and choosing who is and who isn't. I mean, I think it's well intended, but I'm trying to figure out, you know, like, I mean, if you had something similar to what had previously occurred, or take that farther, that if there was a person who, let me just go ugly with it, if there's somebody who had criminal charges and they're incarcerated and they're not available to present, that is this not setting up hurdles that we are unable to overcome?
in that particular thing, you could,
You still could provide the opportunity and say, hey, we'll have it on this date. If you can't make it, that's on you, right?
But we didn't provide that opportunity.
You
no,
haven't-
but
you
we
haven't
haven't
forced-
adopted this
you
policy
haven't-
yet either. so-
Yeah, and in this policy, that situation you're talking about would never even have happened, because upon resignation, the appointment would have gone away, you guys wouldn't be removing it. This is only
Depending on
basically
which
in a
one you're looking
termination. Basically, this isn't like a termination, situation, when you're forcibly removing an appointment.
So you don't think there's any, you don't have concerns with having that language as is, that you will be provided an opportunity?
I don't have problems with it, no.
Don't either. Similar to the appeal procedure we already have in here for employees, for regular employees, because they get the opportunity to be heard and to appeal, right? But appointed people don't have the right to an appeal, so this kind of gives them their own opportunity to be heard by the mayor and council in the event of a termination. So it's already kind of similar to the policy we have for employees.
Just not going to the council and mayor, but going to the.
Yeah, and with
they would-
employees,
They would
it's,
go to the city administrator,
Or
not
the-
us.
well, they
or the
go to
mayor.
the mayor for the right to appeal.
Yeah.
And then, but appointed people would come to you.
Come to
would
us,
all of
okay.
you for
That
their
makes
right to be
sense.
heard. So
Probably
it kind of
an
follows.
executive session type
Yeah,
of
Mhm.
situation.
yeah, so it would follow that kind of same procedure. And this was part of what Coeur d'Alene had, this policy is based very similar to what Coeur d'Alene has in their personnel policy, so that was pulled from them
Okay.
And that is the end of my presentation.
Mr. Mayor,
John?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, sorry. One more thing I would like to address.
Sure.
Sorry, I wrote a note down and then I didn't look at my notes. Page, that doesn't look great. Page 55 of the packet, under number 2, holidays. It lists the recognized holidays, and it includes Thanksgiving and day after Thanksgiving. It seems that there's been common practice that the city has also closed or provided some employees with half day the day prior to Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, Mayor, thanks. In the past, the mayor has released employees to go home early on the eve of Thanksgiving and or Christmas. And when I addressed that to the mayor, I think it was last year, Mayor, this is your first year, you said that it would be better to probably have something like that in the policy. I forgot about that one. To put that into the policy if we wanted to so do that, and if we didn't want to do that, that we don't put it in the policy, and therefore it wouldn't be asked of a mayor to make a determination of whether or not they feel like it for the day. So again, if there's a desire of the council to do half days prior to certain holidays, we can add that to the personnel policy as well. And if it's the desire to keep them working the full day before those days, then that's fine too.
The other issue, if I recall correctly, was I had a little bit of concern about employees that an employee that opted to take the day before Thanksgiving off, that they're traveling for family and whatever may be the case, is charged an entire day of PTO. But somebody who shows up for work and then gets the half day off, that they just get the extra half day off. And so it didn't feel like it was an equal treatment, where some receive, let's just call it an 8-hour day and 4 and 4. Some people came in and worked 4 hours and they got 4 hours off without being charged anything, and other people had to utilize an entire 8-hour day to have that day off. So I just felt like there should be a way for that to be, first of all, a more equal treatment, but secondly, something that's council adopted
Yeah.
or supported if that's the case.
We'd love to hear any comments from the council on that.
So you're saying a person that takes the whole day gets charged a day of PTO. Person that works half a day gets paid for half a day, gets to go home early, but they only earn,
They get paid the whole day.
they get paid the whole
Is
day.
that correct?
Yep. that's
Okay,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, so it seems like they should only be charged for half a day of PTO then.
Yeah, but what we need to know is, one, do we let them off a half a day? And if we do, then it's uniform for everyone, meaning that if you took the whole day off, you'd only have to take 4 hours off.
Well, it needs to be fair and balanced.
Right?
The employees that can't take time off,
That's a great point.
do they get an extra 4 hours?
Well, if you declare the
As a holiday.
4 hours as a holiday, then they would get holiday pay for the 4 hours that they get, similar to what they do on a regular holiday.
But some of those employees are not working office hours. So, I mean, if you're declaring that the hours of 8 a.m. till noon are a holiday, the officers that are having to work swing shift, or water and sewer guys that are having to come in on those days, snow
No, we
plows.
would do half-day holiday period, not just 8 to 12.
So what about the guys that have to come in and plow on the day before Thanksgiving in the evening?
Yes, then they would get holiday pay for 4 hours of that holiday.
Of their 8-hour shift.
Just like if they were working Christmas Day.
So it doesn't matter what there's
If
no
we declared it-
designation of what those hours are.
If we call that a 4-hour holiday on this day, then everyone, whether they worked or did not work would get the same benefits in holiday as they did any other holiday in the year.
Sorry, can we say half of their scheduled shift for that
Yes.
day?
Mhm.
Okay, instead of saying 4
For the
hours.
police officers, it would be 5 hours.
Exactly, okay.
Mhm.
That way it covers both
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm all good with that.
sections.
So we
Is that what the council is supportive of?
Yes.
Hearing two
Just
yeses.
so
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
I know that one of the things that's been brought up in the past is level of service. I'm assuming, I know what that means, but I'm assuming that this does not apply, a level of service the day before Thanksgiving or Christmas, nobody's coming in.
Generally, what we have had the problem with is everybody sitting here with no customer interaction for
Okay.
most of the time, it's all day long.
And Leon, if I recall correctly, the ask was for the day before Thanksgiving, but now I'm hearing the day before Christmas too.
Yes, Christmas Eve that was also one of those days.
Okay.
It was both of them.
Okay, so we're
So
saying,
you could say yes on Christmas and no on Thanksgiving. It's totally 100% up to the council to make a determination. Adding a half day's work schedule on this day and we add it to the schedule.
what kind of financial impact does that have to our budget?
So the only financial impact that it would have to our budget is the employees that actually worked on the holiday. Because they will get holiday pay. With
Like
snow
pol-
plowers,
yeah, police officers.
with snow plowers, it's not even a regular occurrence because it just depends upon the weather. It would be the law enforcement officers that would be affected by this, so it would be a very small portion of a budget thing that can be taken care of with, the flexibility of funds, say we don't buy this or don't buy that in order to cover that cost.
So, speaking of pay, on like, say, I'm a law enforcement officer and I work on Christmas Day and I get X amount per hour working. Do I get time and a half or double time?
It's like double time and a half because you
Okay.
get that 8 hours or 10 hours for the holiday, okay? You also
Okay.
get paid time and a half
Okay,
for
okay.
working the holiday, so it's double time and a half.
Okay, good. Okay,
What section?
okay,
Say what?
thank you.
What section is that?
on page
It's
28 of the policy,
It's
section
it's C2.
15C.
C2,
C.
Yeah, 15C2. Why is that under, it doesn't make
No,
sense to fall under
That's not
15.
15, it's just C.
it just C.
It's C2. 15's from B, from the section above it, from B.
If you just reference holidays in the motion, I can get it put in the right spot. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I think the employees would be happy if that's the determination of the council to know that all the time.
Sounds like the building's taking off.
We're headed out.
Beat me up. Hi, Rafi.
Hey.
Okay. So is John doing his motion or are we?
Yeah, sorry. I'm drawing pictures.
Okay. With your crayons and your stuff down.
Oh, I don't get crayons, we're not that fancy here.
Pizza.
Sorry, 1 second, let me just. All right, Mr. Mayor.
John?
I would like to make a motion, please. I would like to make a motion to approve consideration of adoption of the 2025-26 City of Rathdrum Personnel Policy with the following exceptions. Section C2 holidays, to add receive 1/2 of the regular scheduled shift time as additional pay, additional holiday pay for the day before Thanksgiving and December 24th. And section V5C4, we're going to reject that particular change for this year.
And then.
Appendix G.
And yeah, Appendix G, Section 6, and then Leon, you were going to help with some verbiage there.
Yeah, to include or communicate with the local or the current insurance provider.
In the case of the city attorney.
Yeah, in the case of the city attorney.
All right, yeah,
So stated.
or Appendix G, Section 6, or communicate to the current insurance provider or city attorney, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll get that drafted in.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Loran?
John Hodgkin,
Aye.
Ken Owens,
Aye.
Larry Sanders,
Yes.
John Hatcher.
Yes.
Motion passes. B, this is an action item, consideration of approving the conveyance of a utility easement to Avista.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. The city of Rathdrum has a sanitary sewer lift station on Burlington Road. We refer to it as lift station number 4. As part of when that was constructed, we agreed to allow Avista to run their infrastructure because they were extending that infrastructure for our lift station on the back side of the right-of-way for Burlington Road. So we are seeking to donate to them a 10-foot wide utility easement. And what I'm seeking this evening is just your approval and authorization of Mayor Hill to be able to sign the conveyance document.
Council?
Mr. Mayor,
John?
I'd like to make a motion approving the conveyance of the utility easement to Avista Corporation.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Loran?
John Hodgkin,
Aye.
John Hatcher,
Yes.
Larry Sanders,
Sure.
Ken Owens.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
C, this is an action item of consideration authorizing mayor to sign and execute an agreement with Companions Animal Shelter.
Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you is an agreement with the Companions Animal Shelter. We have not had an updated contract with them for nearly 15 years, so I think it's about time. And during that time, the fees have only increased by $25 for a 5-day stay, so I think it's pretty reasonable, and it's similar to what other cities in the area are being charged as well.
Council?
Chief, these are dogs that our animal control picks up and takes their,
That is
that are
correct.
unclaimed dogs that owners don't. And then and we have to pay for those, correct?
If they are not claimed within a certain period of time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if it's chipped, then of course, we can contact the owner, correct?
It certainly helps speed things up, yes.
Yeah, okay. Do they still go there even if they're chipped?
Yeah, they can if we aren't able to verify it ahead of time. Sometimes those chips aren't active, they're not currently registered. Different scanners work for different things. That's my understanding of how those work right now. But if they do end up there and if they aren't picked up by the owner within those 5 days, that's when the charges would apply to us. So this is pretty much what the agreement is now, but we're getting it formalized.
Is there any repercussion back to the owner if it's ever found, or to recoup our expenses, or do we eat that?
So there can be the criminal penalty for a dog at large, and that would cover that initial expenses.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Dan, And isn't the owner of the animal responsible to pay the holding fees? So are we only getting billed if nobody claims the animal? Somebody comes forward and claims the animal, they're the ones that are responsible for the holding fees for the animal for the time that it was there.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
John?
I'd like to make a motion authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Companions Animal Shelter.
I'll second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Lorianne?
John Hodgkins.
Aye.
Larry Sanders.
Yes.
John Hatcher.
Yes.
Ken Owens.
Aye.
Motion passes. D, this is an action item, consideration of approving the updated city administrator job description. Mr.
Mr.
Deuce.
Mayor and Council, a few months ago, the council and the mayor asked that I provide an updated job description for my position. In this process, I did reach out to 10 other cities who had city administrators within the state, all the way from our local ones, Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, Hayden, as well as others from Ammon, Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, and some of the other cities. I've got all 10 of those and looked at this and actually put them into AI to create the best policy using a lot of those things. That gave me the base of what this policy was. Then from there, I went into it and added in some of the special duties that I do that might not be what other cities do. I also turned this over to staff, both in the PD, Kevin and Emily, to review it as well and to make sure that it was complete. They each had edits that they presented to me and I included into this job description. And that is how we've come to this job description now. It is a complete rewrite of the job description. It doesn't even look like the old job description. Any questions or concerns? I know that the mayor brought up a couple of things. Mayor, do you want to address them? Do you want me to?
The one that I was wanting to address, it looks like you changed.
I did.
Okay.
Based off of your comments that you sent me over the weekend, I made a change on that. It was number 9.
Yep.
I had in it, if you recall in the first version, City Hall Project Manager.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the mayor. I didn't want to move it because it's so much of the part of my job, but to change it to Major Project Manager as assigned by the mayor and council. So if there's another project that comes up, the mayor and council wants me to manage, then I'd be doing that as well. So this isn't something that is, what I say, permanent in the sense that I'll always be managing projects, but as projects come up, that'd be my primary responsibility, if not to delegate to, say, somebody else or another department or something like that, that I'd be responsible for that.
Sure. I think this rewrite is better of what I was looking for.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to point out is number 10 on the human resources. A lot of those responsibilities and with other members of the staff that work on HR stuff would then be forwarded and changed if we ever did hire an HR director. So those things would move over if we did hire somebody of that capacity. Okay? Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Glad to
John.
talk about.
Leon, so number 4, elected official interactions, just clarification. So first bullet, oversee the creation of agendas for council meetings. So the city clerk is responsible for actually creating the agenda. And then my understanding was the mayor had the final yes or no on that. Is that?
So generally speaking, yes, but that's one of the things that the mayor has currently, and we haven't really spoken about it in great detail, but has been traditionally that I work with the department heads. We have a department head meeting generally 8 days before a council meeting. We go over the entire agenda of what's going to be on that agenda. We have discussions about that. I give direction, and then Loran puts the agenda together based off of that department head meeting. All of the staff reviews it for their components of that agenda, and then we send it out. And mayor and council all gets to review that. If there's things that they want added or subtracted, then we handle those as we need to, so that all elected officials get a say on what's on that agenda.
Okay, so could we change that from oversee to assist the city clerk with creation?
I think that's what the oversee is
Well, it makes it sound like you're a gatekeeper of the agenda.
I
To
don't
me,
know.
that's what it sounds like. Well, by oversee, that means you have authority over the agenda, to me.
Over the city clerk's creation of the agenda, he does, and then he sends it to you guys, and you guys then get the final say over it.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had things that I've been told, no, we're not gonna add those to the agenda before, so.
Such as?
Not by Leon, though.
What have you been told that you couldn't have added to the agenda? Was it
so,
under Vic
what's-
or?
Yeah, it was under Vic.
Okay,
I
so.
don't know if that was,
So generally, I mean, I'm kind of flipping through here trying to find the, what I think I'm looking for is in here.
You're looking for the organizational chart, which
Yep.
is the second to last tab.
right there.
You memorized it?
Yes, I do.
That org chart is not pretty.
Well, we are modifying it as we go a little bit more in depth.
So his position oversees the various positions, and so I mean he does oversee Loran's work and the work products that she creates. So overseeing the creation, I don't think is inaccurate. And that he's ensuring that relevant and necessary information is included in the council meeting packets, that making sure that once the agenda is formed, that all of the necessary documentation is brought together and formed together and put together in the right way. So I don't think that that's an inaccurate way of representing what's required of his position.
And I agree with that because the word oversee can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't say you're creating the agenda, you're overseeing the creation of the agenda. So you're our leader. So you need to oversee the things that are done. So I don't have a problem with that word there. So.
Sorry, he's the leader of the staff, he's not my leader, sorry Larry. Just a
Well,
clarification there.
What's that?
I said he's not our leader, he's the
Well, he's our
staff's
city
leader,
leader.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understood. Like I said, it's more just the connotation of the word oversee, and thank you for that clarification. And I think if the mayor is good with that verbiage, being responsible for the city administrator, then that's fine. And then just again another point of clarification. Third bullet: act as a link between staff and elected officials. Not a hard rule, but one of your responsibilities is
Yes,
to
that's
act
right.
as that link.
Yep.
Okay.
You give me direction, and then I make sure that it happens downstream.
Both directions.
Both directions, yes.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
John.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the updated city administrator's job description.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Loran.
John Hatcher,
Yes.
Larry Sanders,
Yes.
John Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ken Owens.
Aye.
Motion passes. E, this is a discussion item, the downtown revitalization.
Mayor and council. Due to some of the comments that we've seen from the community on the downtown revitalization, I felt it was important to provide you with some information and updates. Also, a little bit of a history of what's happened with this downtown revitalization. Maybe my mouse will work. All right, that's because I was going the wrong direction, sorry. So the first downtown revitalization actually started to get together in 1999. Basically, at this particular point in time in 1999, there was just basic sidewalks along Main Street. There were no trees located on Main Street. As I saw from this visual picture of the, I wasn't here, so I don't know for sure, but this is a satellite image from 1999. When the city decided to do the downtown revitalization, they decided to add trees to the downtown area. Metal culvert sleeves, seen in this picture here, were actually put in to help protect the sidewalks from damage. The idea here is that the roots would then grow down and not up and provide a protection to the sidewalks. They also decided to put in some decorative bricks to help beautify the downtown area. So this is an image from satellite at 2003 that shows the change in the downtown sidewalk, and it also included the trees. Complaints and issues started to rise in 2008, that there were sidewalks that were starting to get lifted. That is from the memory of staff that was here during that particular point in time. In 2012, we had a contract with Coeur d'Alene Concrete Cutting to cut and grind sidewalk panels as directed. We were charged $175 each for each of the panels that needed to be grinded in 2012. Since that time, we've grinded sidewalks pretty much on a regular basis, almost every single year as as the root system kind of grew. Our sidewalks, when they're put in, they have a 50-year life cycle, and so to be grinding down sidewalks after 10 years is defeating the purpose of a 50-year life cycle. These are just some of the pictures that we took last year as we were preparing for the downtown revitalization, noticing that around the trees we had several of the pieces that were ground down. The metal pieces were lifted. Now they do have the ability to cut those as needed, but they hadn't been cut for a while. Sidewalk panels were lifted in certain areas, and some of the brickwork was actually sinking in different areas, creating several trip hazards around the downtown area. So after a lot of concern, there were public concern, there was accidents that happened in the sidewalks on Main Street, some of them pretty severe. We started the downtown revitalization process in 2024. Council approved the Downtown Revitalization Committee. We held several meetings throughout the summer. Those are the dates that they were held. We also did a survey. The first question of the survey is, what is the highest need in the downtown area? 51.6%, this is 397 responses if you recall. 51.6 said the lack of parking in the downtown area. That's why part of the grant, about $150,000 of the grant, was being used to create a parking area next to the jail site. 19.9% was fixing the sidewalks. 10.8 was the trees, and 4.3 was the crosswalks. Those were the top 4 items. We did have a section that said other, and you could list that. There were a lot listed of other concerns, but usually 1 or 2 comments on each one. The downtown revitalization plan was created and sent to the city council that did include removing trees in the downtown area. That plan was presented to the city council on October 9th and was approved. As part of the requirements for the grant, the public hearing was held on November 13th, 2024 as well. We finished up that grant process, we submitted it, we had several times that we were asked to make presentations. The mayor joined staff in making a presentation in the spring of 25, and we received our award letter on May 8th, 2025. I do think it's important to note that the grant was only for infrastructure items. Things like beautification, trees, even the light poles, the hanging flower pots on the light poles that were presented were not able to be included in the grant itself.
Leon, am I reading that correctly there, that, if you go back one more slide, please?
Sure.
The plan was approved on October, and then a month later, a public hearing was held?
That was part of the process, because we had to have an approved plan to file for the grant. And then they wanted as a safeguard to have all of their funding has to go through a public hearing first. So the public is made aware of what the plan that was adopted by the council was, to see if there was any concerns from the public prior to final submission of the grant.
But the plan was already approved at that point?
Right. That's correct. Okay. On October 7th, the construction, or demolition started on phase 1 or phase A, as we have on several of our documents. Contractors have 30 days to complete the phase before moving to phase 2. That was a requirement to help protect our businesses. The original construction schedule for the first phase is to be completed around October 27th. There was a difficulty in the sense that the irrigation line that was put in back in 2001, 2002, when the original thing was done, was not in the ground. It was on top of the ground and cement was poured on it. So when they were removing the cement panels, a lot of that irrigation got damaged, and we had to add irrigation to the project in order to be able to have good irrigation in that system. The final product, we'll have additional lighting in downtown, more than what we've had before. Each of the lightings will have hanging baskets of flowers for beautification. Irrigation lines will stream up the light poles, and they will come out the arms and then be able to irrigate those hanging flower baskets to create that beautification. So irrigation's in there. Power is also in the base of each of the light posts, so that when we have our municipal marketplaces and we have trunk or treat and things like that downtown, and power is needed, that it'd be power at every light pole. Currently, a lot of concern was raised about not having the trees and didn't want to have an ugly downtown area. So we have reached out and asked a architect company that does landscape architects to create a rendering. Hopefully by the end of next week, we will have that rendering. We've been in contact with them a couple of times in the last week to try to see if we can get that sped up. But hopefully we will have that. These are photos of those coverts that I told you about at the beginning of the presentation. So in the first one over here, that is the process to remove those out. So they use the backhoe to lift those up out of there. Then over here is another one. You can see the roots that didn't penetrate through the steel, but they came over top of those steel culverts, causing the damage to the sidewalks.
So,
Yes,
sorry, Leon.
Go ahead.
If you stay on that picture, so to me, it seems like the culverts were a great idea. They just weren't implemented correctly, right? It looks like there's at least a foot of dirt over the top of that culvert for those roots to grow out and around. If they'd been implemented at ground level, say with like a brick border around the top of the steel ring, so there was not dirt between there, that very likely we wouldn't have had problems with roots growing out through the sidewalk.
one of the problems with roots is roots start out as thin as a thread. And they can get through just about anything. Matter of fact, several people have problems with root systems going into totally secured water lines and sewer lines. Roots have a way to do what roots want to do, and that is find water. So regardless of, I am not a forester, and I am definitely not a landscape architect, but root systems will find a way to find water whatever way that is. Okay. So with that, these were some of the pictures of the roots that came up over the culverts and was causing the heaves in our sidewalk panels. So here's some of the construction concerns. In stopping the project right now, we would have to redesign to add the trees in. Stopping the project means, like today, we had curbs and gutters poured in phase A. So you would go in tomorrow morning and you say, stop work, we have to redesign this. Redesigning can take, and Kevin probably better did on this, anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks, I don't know. Once those redesigns are done, we would have to submit an amendment to our grant project. Even though that this would not be covered by grant dollars, there's no more dollars to be had. We capped out on the total amount that we could ask for. That would create a delay in construction. Then we'd have to submit a change order to the contractor that we currently have a contract with to do a service that we have. Now, they have a contract to do this work as designed. They could reject the change order, or they could charge us whatever the heck they wanted for the change order to be able to do that. We're in a contract, so there's consequences on both sides. In doing that, we would increase the cost. It's not covered by the grant. We would have to pay for that out of our current budgeted funds. We currently do not have funds budgeted to add the trees into this. It would increase the cost, I just said that, and I asked Kevin to do an engineering estimate. If we were to put them in at the beginning, it's probably about $5,000 per tree. If we let them complete the work and have to cut out the cement and do all of the work to add them in later, it would be about $12,000 a tree. Those are engineering estimates that Kevin graciously put together today to try to get that in before the council meeting. Okay.
So Kevin, what factors, you say $5,000 a tree, that includes engineering
I've got
time,
that.
what is that?
I've got that right here because Kevin gave me that information. Where did my sheet go? Basically, it includes the cost of the tree is $700. The covert's about $2,800. There is the digging out of the hole, and those costs that go along, that's what did up the 5,000. If you start curb cutting and everything else, then that's where you raise the price drastically, is cutting the cement and then repouring the cement and rematching stencils and all of that. I hope, because Kevin wasn't, Kevin put it together today, but do you have anything to add to that, Kevin?
You gotta keep in mind that we would, more or less, we're digging basically a 4-foot deep hole so that we can plant a tree. Those culverts are normally intended to be horizontal, in this case they're vertical. Those things are gonna be, 3 to 4 feet long. So that's the reason why the hole's so deep. So, and what that does is the hole gets deep, therefore the construction or demolition requirements expand
Further.
beyond, so, yeah.
Okay, makes
That's where
sense.
a lot of the costs come in.
Okay.
So is it possible to put the trees in a raised planter?
Yes, we could do a raised planter. There's definitely different types of trees that you could put in. It's not gonna be a full canopy tree.
And is the room after the light poles and the flowers go in? How many of those are there?
We increased, Kevin, how many light poles did we increase on this whole
There's
project?
3 in the middle on each side, isn't there? There's
Yeah,
three intersections.
we didn't, there's one on each side and there should be 3 intermediate on the interior of the block for the block we're sitting on today.
So if this was revisited next budget year, would it be room to add trees and raised planters?
I think that if we got to the budget season next year, we would definitely be able to see if there's room to do that. I can't tell you for sure right now that yes or no, because I haven't seen the spacing of those lights and the length of those arms for the baskets. It'd be better to look at that when they get put in, and we can make that determination next spring when we start working on the budget.
And for budgetary concerns, so let's say we decided not to take action today, to leave things as is so that they finish, and then figuring that it's going to be probably $14,000 next year, per tree. How many trees are we talking about?
Depends on how you can fit
I
it.
think there was 4 trees on each of
See,
the
that's what,
sides of
there
the
were
street.
4 on each side of the street initially. So I did a per tree estimate because that was a conversation, because we could get back and forth on, we putting in 10 trees, we putting in 4 trees, you know, so I wanted to try to create something which is a little bit flexible from that
I'm just,
standpoint.
yeah, I'm just figuring ballpark figures. So figure 3 light poles, maybe 2 per side now versus the 4 that we had, plus the light poles. So what, 2, 4, 6 trees?
Those don't look goofy. It looks so lopsided, John. I'm so sorry to interrupt the council meeting, but that looks so goofy.
Damn it, Rafi.
Yeah, I know.
I think
So-
we have to wait until we see the
I
projection
think
you're
you guys
talking
should
about
wait
where
to
the
see what
lights
it's gonna look
are
like
actually
and
going.
Yeah, I
So-
can make this an action item, so there really isn't any decisions today, but this is a discussion to talk about it, to see where we're at.
Well, based on our grant and what we presented for our grant, we don't have wiggle room. We've already presented it. So I believe we should continue as approved. But that being said, now, I've been catching a lot of flack too from people. What happened to the trees? Why the trees? We want trees. And I understand that. I also understand the effect of the trees. I like Ken's idea of raised beds if we can find smaller, for aesthetic purposes, if they don't look goofy in the wrong spot. I also have seen fake trees that have no roots, that look real. They're not gonna do the same thing to the air or the plants or whatever, you know, carbon monoxide and stuff, but they do have beautification to them. That might be something we might look into also at a later date, but I think for today, we need to proceed as approved.
Leon, is this the end of your
This
slide?
is the last slide, just some of the liability concerns, tort liabilities, ADA, making sure that we have the space. When those sidewalk panels raise above 1/4 of an inch, it's a violation of ADA. So we've got those issues. Liabilities to businesses, if those tree roots grow into their building foundations, they can damage the buildings. Negligence and upkeep is a liability, and some fiscal responsibility. This project to do these sidewalks is about $350,000 of grant funding and city's match. And so, in order to do this every 20 years, when you have a lifetime, or a life cycle of a 50-year life cycle for a sidewalk, it gets very expensive in that aspect as well, and trying to take care of the taxpayers' dollars.
Leon, as you present on that topic there, it's interesting to note that the new City Hall artistic rendering that's right out here in the hallway has trees all along the sidewalks on the City Hall project.
They're in the swells, they're swell trees. They have more room to grow. They're down below the sidewalk panels. They're like the sidewalk, the approved swell trees that we have in the residential neighborhoods that are not causing problems, because they have adequate water and they have adequate space for the roots to grow. And it doesn't affect the sidewalk panels.
And the roots follow the water.
I'd also like to note that, back to your, the survey that was completed, 10.8% of people identified trees as a topic, a concern that they wanted to be addressed. I don't think that people had the vision of trees being completely removed, and so they felt like the trees as is was something that wasn't something that they were considering as a problem, because they were content with the way that the trees are. The issues that they were addressing is the parking and the sidewalks, that those are issues that needed correcting, but I don't think anybody was envisioning when it said trees that meant tree removal, or keeping trees. I do, if I recall correctly, we did have discussions about trees, and I think we've tried to remain optimistic of the presentation that there are different ways of providing beautification, and the light poles and planter boxes or the hanging plants, and then we'd also talked at one point about shade, about awning things that can be enacted in an area that perhaps can provide a different atmosphere. And I've tried to remain optimistic, but man, once those trees got pulled out, it's a stark difference.
It is.
It's
And as I told Paul when
drastic.
we talked, I like the trees as well, but we were also trying to be very mindful of costs and keeping our budget low. We've tried very hard as a city to not raise property taxes more than we have to. I think that, as the numbers go, it's very difficult to justify ripping up these sidewalks and creating this condition on every 20 years. It is, when we did the agreement with the contractors to do this, the biggest concerns was the effect on businesses during this whole process. And to turn around and do this again every 20 years, to have this be a situation that we look at every 20 years, we cannot forecast whether or not the things that we do solve future problems until they're future problems. I know that Coeur d'Alene has had this issue with theirs. They have a wider sidewalk panel, and they also found out that if they remove the trees before they mature and replant them with small trees again, that they solve that problem. But they have got to cut them down before they get too big so that they can replant them with new ones. They also have a downtown group that pays a membership that pays for these things, and it's not the cost of the city to do them, it's their downtown organization that does them. We don't have a lot of businesses downtown because we have basically a 2-block area. To put that type of a cost like Coeur d'Alene does down Sherman on the backs of our businesses, if they wanna do that, that's fine. But to just do that is a pretty expensive project for the businesses of our downtown area.
What about the concept of as Paul presented, having knockout panels that where that can be, is that drastic of a change where I think you referred to them as cold cuts, can be the expansion joints can be put strategically to create places, and where there's already irrigation that's there for the streetlights, is that a possibility to enable future councils to have the ability to, this council included, to perhaps in years future to add trees back in?
It's a possibility, but I would have to work with Kevin and others to figure that
It
out.
still comes down to the depth of the excavation and how far you can, or how well you can confine, you know, those limits of where the excavation is. And we live in an area where it's all sands and gravels, so trench walls don't hold up very well. So that's what we're looking at as far as how, you know, how much of a trench or how much large is the excavation when you're talking about digging 4 feet deep. And that's what we started looking into, how far do we influence outside of, you know, where we're at now. So if you were to say, hey, let's put in a knockout panel, or, you know, put it in there, you're still gonna undermine the curb more than likely, just knowing that depth and how close and how, I don't wanna say the sidewalks are skinny, but they're just slightly over 9 feet. They're right on the back of the curb, so to think you're not gonna compromise the curb and potentially get into the asphalt, it's probably short-sighted.
I'm not following, and I think you're speaking more in terms of engineer, and I don't. So when you're saying on the backs of curbs, can you help me understand what you're meaning and why that's something that I should be worried about?
The sidewalk, there's no green space between the curb and the sidewalk.
Okay.
So if we're talking about removing a sidewalk panel, we're still talking about going vertically down to dig 4 feet in order to plant a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, if that happens, if we remove that panel and we go vertically down, we know that the trench, the soils are gonna slough slightly and start undermining what's underneath the curb, is what I'm getting at.
So is the only place that you could place a tree well against the curb?
No, but you saw how big those tree wells are. They're, you know, 3 feet, 4 feet in diameter. I mean, they're big. So if you're anywhere you wanna put a 4-foot diameter circle on, you know, a 9-foot wide area, you're a little bit restricted.
You can't build those too close to the buildings because they'll grow into the buildings. So you have to put them out as far away from the building as you can, which puts them right up against the curb.
So when they were built there before, how was that engineered to alleviate that problem? How would you as an engineer go about?
Well, what they did then, is
Mhm.
they didn't have sidewalks.
They took them all out.
They just dug and, you know, put everything in, so the demolition and the removal of existing infrastructure, I don't believe that there were sidewalks back when they did this in 2001. And if there were sidewalks back in 2001, which there probably were, they were not the best looking sidewalks that you've ever seen. I've just run into them all across town. I've run into them down Main Street, Mill Street. We have historical photos of what it looks like.
I don't think we're talking about the same thing now. I think we've kind of switched conversations.
How
So
did they do it
hang
back
on.
in 2001?
Yeah.
They dug. They just got a backhoe and dug. For
Okay,
it.
so how did because what I think I heard you say is that take this, I believe this right here shows a curb, is this piece right here?
Yes,
And this cross-graded area here that's identified as 2 feet,
that's
If-
that stenciled concrete band. Yes,
that's what?
where we're doing that stenciled concrete band.
Okay.
So it'll look like brick.
It's
Okay, so you're saying that if we were to cut that section out, make that 4 feet or so, if you were to cut that out, that you run the risk of the dirt that you're digging down, that curb could tip over, and that the asphalt underneath of it could collapse.
Yes.
How did that not happen for the last 20 years with the trees that were already in that same location?
So, Mayor, and this is my assumption, and hopefully somebody can help me. When they did it 20 years ago, they took out all of the sidewalks, they took out all the curbs similar to what we're doing now.
Mhm.
They dug the holes for the trees at that time, they put them in there, and then they built the infrastructure around the trees. Okay, what I hear in conversation is build the sidewalk now as it is, later on come out and punch out a panel, and then dig for their 4-inch hole. What the difference is, none of the curb or the sidewalk existed when they dug the hole for the tree. So therefore, it wasn't washing out the curb because it didn't exist. After they got the tree put in, then they would put in the base, compact it, and then pour the curb, and then pour the rest of the sidewalk.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, because in doing it this way, you can't compact it, because
You'll
it's
have a big
underneath.
old hole right next to your
Right,
curb.
right.
Yep. That's the difference, is it was part of the process and not after the process.
Is we were talking about the idea of above ground planters for trees. How would those be irrigated?
We'd have to pull some irrigation lines from the lines that go into the electrical boxes,
By hand.
or do a small drill cut and.
Water and can. I think water and can duty will have to be assigned to
Emily's
someone.
job.
Not to me, but, you know.
But,
Chief
I
Haley,
mean,
water
if,
can do.
if we know with the as-built where the irrigation line is at, and we're able to drill a smaller hole into the concrete where that planter box would be, and be able to attach to the irrigation line. I am not a landscape architect guy. This is just an accountant's version of how maybe it might be able to do this. And then you pull that irrigation line up through the planter box, and then you irrigate it that way. Would be a minor adjustment than rather a major overhaul in pulling up the sidewalk.
Kev, does that hold water?
Yeah, it does.
Dying.
You're
player on
stuck
words.
with where those planters are, so you're, at that point in time, you're more or less fixed because you're coming vertically up with the irrigation. You're drilling a pilot hole to find the irrigation, so it's not like you start, okay, well, maybe this planter box, we move over this way. Once, you know, you make that tap, you're pretty much married to it, where it's at.
There are other cities that have created these nice big raised bed planter boxes that's on cement that they plant trees into. But you have to have special trees that are limited to how much root system they need, and they don't grow to big canopy trees.
Right.
They're just nice beautification trees.
Leanne, was there, I don't know if we had any, why do I not have internet? I don't have anything else. Council?
The only thing I see that I like from this discussion really is Ken's idea of the above ground tree planters. Other than that, I believe we should stay where we're at, not change anything, so.
We could bring in the spring cost estimates and everything else for the budgeting process to do that.
James has already talked about one planters definitely.
So we're talking irrigation, are we talking drip line?
Pretty much.
So it could be pretty much run anywhere, right?
You're running them up the light poles, aren't you, for the plants?
Kevin had made a comment in a previous city council meeting, it's cheaper to rip up paper than it is to rip up concrete. If you wanna make an adjustment, it seems like now's the time to do it.
Actually, you're past that, Mayor,
Yeah.
because we
We're
already
working
have
up concrete at this point.
It's already ripped up.
So if we were to stall it now, okay, the curb and gutter that has been put in would have to be ripped up, that is currently in the other thing. We also, because of the delays, you could almost guarantee you that there will be dirt in that side of the street from now until next spring. Because if it takes a week or two to get Kevin to do plans, if it takes 2 days to 2 months for Department of Commerce to approve the amendment to the grant, if it takes the contractors who have a contract with us to perform the work, we have problems with it and we have a violated, if we can't complete the contract, we have those issues. All of those things tie up this whole process.
Are the irrigation lines already installed?
Yes, for this
Well,
one down here.
we're installing them, yes.
The first phase.
So not installed yet.
Well,
Part of it's installed,
yeah,
they're
part of
running
them are
line today.
installed. From Nadine's all the way down past, Paul's building, those are in. We haven't gone all the way around the corner on Nadine's, but yeah, there's new black pipe out there.
It seems so incredibly simple to just go tee off and put a stub to where you think you might want water, potentially, to have something that's making it ready. It seems like such a simple change that wouldn't be a huge.
Do it quick.
Do it quick.
Yeah, do it quick. I mean, when it comes to these construction contracts, we write the rules and they agree to follow those rules. But the same thing is we have to follow the rules that we've written. So we've allotted them a certain amount of time because for us, time was extremely important because we wanted to minimize the inconvenience that we had to our businesses. We always kept that at the forefront of what we're doing and continue to do that today. but we would have to know where those spots are gonna be and have to know it pretty quickly. Because they're gonna start backfilling those irrigation lines that they just put in, cause they have to start moving forward and getting the rest of the sidewalk almost constructed. So, it would have to be,
Mayor, drilling those pilot holes would be a lot cheaper than leaving it uncovered for the winter.
agreed.
So the reality is that this is a discussion item.
Right.
We don't have the ability to make any action
I
tonight.
didn't forecast the need to do action based
Okay.
off of,
So the reality is then the next opportunity would be the next city council meeting in November.
November 12th.
And by then, this is already,
Phase 1 over there will be
concreted.
done, and concrete will be in. I didn't foresee a need to change it, and I apologize if that was, but I made it a discussion item to give you information about this whole project.
Well played.
okay.
All I'm hearing is we're gonna have a more expensive discussion later.
It's already an expensive discussion right now. I think
Yeah.
we're past that point, that, where we are right now is no different than having this discussion in, a few weeks versus having it in, a few months or a few years. The reality of it is that the phase in which we're at in the project, the lack of an action item here tonight, and, so bringing this back, at a later point, the concrete is already there. So the discussion that we're having, the price tag on the discussion that we're having doesn't change. Whether it's in November, whether it's in the spring, or whether it's in a year.
But the planter boxes and creating those as trees, Emily's been kind of browsing through the website
There's
right
actually
now.
some
She's on
cool
Amazon,
stuff.
looking for equipment.
There's
companies
actually
that
some
make them.
really nice looking things that would be far less expensive than pulling up the concrete.
Right, but still, the price tag of what we're looking at, whether it's in a few weeks at the next city council meeting, in a few months next spring, or in a year, the price tag is no different, right?
Right. Well,
Well, if you try to put them in the concrete, you're looking at a massive price tag 20 years in the future versus if you do above ground trees, then you preserve that sidewalk for the 50-year lifespan that it should have, which means that your price tag will be reduced. If you look at it in like a super long term
lifespan,
fashion, right?
You know, we had a committee that dissected this for 12 meetings or so. Talked about it, presented it, made decisions, had a public hearing. You know, and yeah, naturally, we all make mistakes, things happen. After thought, yeah, the trees are pretty, but what effect, you're explaining the effect that they have on our system. And if you look at those pictures, that one picture showed a guy's hand by that one root. That tree's only 20 years old, and the root's this big around. You know, that can do some, is that your hand, Kevin? Okay.
Freshly made.
But,
Love to
A
see
little
it
bit
up
smaller.
there.
yeah, but it was still a good-sized root. That being said, I mean, if we wanna make changes, we're gonna have to probably wait till it's done and then do what's best in a decision-making process of whether it be the above-ground trees or just leave it alone.
well, and we could bring those costs and pictures to the
Right,
council
right.
when we talk about it in the spring
Yeah.
and show what those are.
If I'm not mistaken, though, that from what I understand, that the Downtown Revitalization Committee was opposed to the removal of the trees.
One person was opposed to the removal of the trees.
Okay. That was portrayed to me differently.
Well, and there was no choice in it, really.
Right, that's right.
After looking at the culverts and the roots and stuff, they would've had to come out anyway, I think.
But this
Yeah, and
way-
that was my,
Unfortunately.
going back to, what was it, October of last year when this was approved? That was, you know, in all fairness, my understanding was the trees as they were going to be removed, but I was not under the understanding at that point that they would not be replaced.
I felt like I had that understanding that, and I was open and optimistic to the concept of the light poles and the hanging planters, and I believe we had a discussion about alternative shade canopies. So I felt like we did have discussions about that fact, but like I said, it's a stark reality when you look down Main Street and see those trees gone. And I mean, I think the trees needed to be removed, but I can understand people's outcry
Right.
about the lack of replacement of the
And we're
trees.
hoping that we can still create a beautiful downtown environment with the things that we have planned, we can add to it.
Probably
We're trying
looks
to create that.
starker because the light poles are also
Yeah, the
gone.
light poles
So
are
you have
also gone.
everything's gone. It looks
Yeah,
very
yeah.
different that way, but the
Oh,
light
yeah.
poles will be back.
The planners look good. I don't think we should do anything with the current plan, but, so if you have water at every light pole for the planners, you have water for the tree ready available. I mean, even if somebody has to get water from each light pole to water the tree, it can still be done at a later time.
And,
Because right now, we don't know where the light poles are gonna go.
We do.
So
We
well,
do.
but you have a picture of it to see where trees could go.
They know exactly where. I mean,
The thing is, we gotta
Yeah,
figure out what size of planter box and how do we fit that in
Okay.
between these lights, and
What
we don't
kind of
have it in front
trees?
of us right now, I guess is the.
Need to do more research.
We can do that additional research and we can get that to you guys as well.
So I have, are we done with the trees?
that's up to you guys.
Okay, I have a question about when we talked at a previous meeting about when the construction began, about the effect it was gonna have on the businesses and building ramps to get into the businesses and allowing people easy access so the businesses can remain open. I haven't been downtown. I don't know how that's been
I'll
going.
let Kevin cover that, cause he's out with them all the time.
I'm gonna remind you that it's not gonna be a fun project. I'm gonna explain that to you. Yes, we got off on the wrong foot with some assumptions with regards to what we're doing. We got into the demolition phase and started removing sidewalks, and we did have a business that was very concerned about the fact that there wasn't a ramp yet. And by the time we made it over from our side of the building to go meet and talk with them, the temporary ramp had been constructed. I understand that temporary crushed stone ramps is not ideal, but welcome to the construction world. The biggest thing is right now is just the ability of people to walk up and down the sidewalks that aren't there. There is, we've had folks that have walked out into the street, paralleling cars in order to, solicit some of these, get into these businesses. I don't wanna tell you, I think it's going well. I think we're communicating with them, on a daily basis to say, hey, what are your challenges? What can we do? We wanna listen, how can we help? Here's what our plan is. We created a newsletter that we're gonna try to, produce every single week, as far as explaining, hey, here's what's happened on the project, here's what you can expect schedule-wise, here's what we've run into on the construction side, that type of thing. Certainly, yeah, anytime you're working around someone's home, and now that we're working around someone's business, it's not ideal. It's definitely an inconvenience, and that's probably an understatement to say it's an inconvenience. We're doing the best we can. Rafi had suggested that we place something on the city's social media account, just reminding folks that the fact that the businesses remain open during construction. You've seen Nadine's has their big banner above, says open during construction. We've put our orange construction diamond signs out there that says businesses are open during construction. Again, not ideal as far as how to get to those businesses, I understand. But so far, I think we're doing the best we can with the hand we're dealt and trying to get this project done and keeping people, remain open for business.
Well, and that's good, and that was part of my concern at that last meeting, was the effect it would have on our businesses. And you're saying we're doing the best we can, and I think we are, but my concern is the construction company. They were required, we made the requirement to them, we want this, and we wanna protect our businesses, and
Yep,
we need to provide ramps.
We state what the rules are,
Okay,
and we have that in our contracts with them as far as, here's the duration that we're gonna allow you to work within, this area. You have to provide access to businesses so they remain open. We understand there's gonna be interim times when, such as what we had on that day one, where, that we ripped out the sidewalk and had to throw down the stone, and there was an hour or so that went by that hadn't happened. We knew that. We knew it was gonna happen that way. It's construction.
They just need to be more mindful of the business's hours of operation. Most of us don't open till 10 or 11 in the morning, but they're like blocking businesses in those times of peak lunch and dinner. It's like, you can't do that. I mean, they have to be more mindful. They start work at like 6:30 or 7 in the morning. They need to get their stuff done in the businesses that are gonna open for lunch or whatever on those days, right? At those times. And then
Makes
put the
sense.
ramp back. It's hurting everybody down here. It's killing us.
So we had talked about, we can certainly go out and, Rafi, we can go back to the contractor and mention those type of things. We mentioned to them, we had a couple businesses on the section we're on now that we know that they're closed Mondays. We mentioned that to the contractor and say, I understand you're working 5 days a week. However, just understand these businesses are closed on Mondays. This would be a prime opportunity to get, some of the permanent work done right in front of their front door, so that, we can get that access a little bit more solidified than other than the temporary, gravel ramps. And yeah, I mean, Rafi, in hindsight, yeah, I mean, we dictated what the hours of the work hours are gonna be, and we did that based on what city code is for what we allow for anywhere within the city of Rathdrum. We didn't include anything in there as far as prime lunch dining hours, cause that could fluctuate. Most of the time, people do generally eat around the noon hour. I get it, I understand. Not sure what I could do above and beyond that. Rafi, if you have-
and I just brought up
I'm
the
just
question.
here because I see my fellow businesses downtown are suffering, and now I'm like, well, what am I gonna go through, when they start on the other side?
So
So we've got some major holidays happening during that time too.
from what I understood, that there were some posts made on social media that indicated that the construction is in full swing, and photos that were uploaded. And then there was a comment from somebody who indicated that the construction escorted them into the building to allow them access during that period of time. And then 20 minutes later, they indicated that there was a ramp in place. So there was an initial reaction to what it is that they're seeing. During that, that they're being escorted in, and in 20 minutes, there's a ramp in place.
That was the situation with one business, yes. And we met and went and talked with them, and they had decided to close, or not do any business that day. And when we went over and talked to them and said, hey, your doors, that open sign should be on, your doors should be unlocked, there's a temporary ramp there. They said, okay, all right, now we feel better, and, I think they ended up open for business that day. But early on, they made the decision to not be open. We encourage them to continue moving forward, so.
Looking at what we were looking at here, this says demolition work started on October 8th. I think we just saw something that was up there on the screen that says that anticipated scheduled completion October 27th. Is that next Monday?
That's next week.
Yeah. Is that just for phase A?
That was the initial plan on the initial schedule, but remember I mentioned that they had the irrigation issue that could delay them for a couple of days. but they're still got until essentially November 7th to finish that up with that phase. They are ahead of that deadline time frame to get that done. Today they poured the curb and gutter part of that, which means now they just need to backfill that and get it prepped for the cement pour. So hopefully, weather permitting, they'll be able to get that poured as soon as possible. We've got a forecast of rain Friday through Monday. It probably won't pour cement in the middle of a rainstorm, so I don't know what that's going to play like. But we want a good quality product and not something that's got a bunch of raindrops in it either, so we can't control that weather aspect part.
Yeah, they were given a 30-day window,
They're
correct?
given a 30-day window, and they're definitely on schedule to be done within the 30 days.
Okay. I just don't want our businesses to suffer.
Nor do I. It's not a fun situation to try to manage the construction, but, you know, the one thing is, and I mentioned to Rafi, and I've checked in with them a couple of times during the project already, and just say, hey, you know, here's what we're trying to do. We do meet with the contractor 2 or 3 times per day. Say, what are your questions? What can we do? You know, about the scope of the work, because we're retrofitting infrastructure to, which is not fun in itself. Trying to make sidewalks now ADA compliant where before they weren't. So we're touching base with that contractor, probably making 3 or 4 points of contact with them every single day to say, hey, what are your questions? How can we expedite things? You know, we moved promptly on the irrigation stuff as soon as we saw that, and there was choice words used at the time when that happened, so I'll not use that now. But as soon as we saw that, we knew. We got right on the contractor and said, get us a price. Right now, start getting the scope of work together. We actually authorized them to do the work before we even have the price. Because we don't want to dilly-dally with, you know, going back and forth, understanding that we're gonna have impacts to our businesses while we're sitting back, kinda going through a little, you know, back and forth discussion between contractor and owner, so.
You know what, I'm somewhat of a visionary, but I know the end result's gonna be really nice. It's just what the suffering of,
Yeah,
from the
no,
beginning to the
it's-
end, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's what
Okay.
we always call short-term inconveniences, long-term benefits. I just don't wanna sound, too casual as far as mentioning the short-term
I
inconveniences.
appreciate that, thank you.
Kevin, I think the nightmare scenario for me right now would be that we finish this section and we start the next section, and for whatever reason, weather or whatever, we aren't able to finish it. Are we gonna, is there a likelihood that we're gonna end up with a section of our streets that are torn up until spring?
There's always that possibility, but please understand that what we put into our contract was the contractor has to have, and they're probably a little bit better at weather forecasting than what we are, but they have to make a decision as a company to say, if we're gonna get in there and start our demolition work, we get 30 days to go. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, there couldn't be some unforeseen acts of Mother Nature that nobody could have forecasted. I don't know how that type of scenario looks. We have implanted this into their brain that if you start your demolition work, you will be done 30 days from now. Period. Irrigation stuff was something we did not expect. And we've kind of rolled with the punches on that. We know that there's at least probably a couple of days for that to happen. However, it's gone fairly fluidly. You know, we poured half of the curb today on that Phase A section. The irrigation line is going in right behind it. So we're not really losing time. So I'm very pleased with the contractor on that standpoint. Yeah, as far as being reactive. So the other thing we need to mention here is we're required to get every single product that goes into the ground built in America, bought, Latin America, the BABA certifications, that does also create some challenges. You know, we've had to turn away or had to go and reach through the Department of Commerce for small little exceptions because there were some washers that were needed for, you know, the bolts that we needed that were made in China, and no one else knew where to get those other than China. And yeah, we had to get written permission, and that happened pretty quickly, so it's, yeah. I could talk forever for a while. I'll stop. Come see me, Rafi does, come see me. Paul, you guys, you're right across the street, so, we hired the land surveyor that is doing all construction staking. His office is right in the demolition area right now as well. So, less frequent walking business, but he understands the importance, of getting out there and being diligent with getting work completed, so.
Council, any further discussion?
I'm content.
Moving on. 9, staff reports. Mr. Deuce, Finance.
Mr. Mayor and Council, before you is a staff report as presented in the packet. Jody had some family commitments today and so was unable to be here at the council meeting. If you have any questions on that, you can send them to me or her or both, and we will get those answered for you.
10, visitor comment, another opportunity to address the council. Sir.
I just want to say you guys are doing a great job, Kevin. I see you guys out there. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thanks,
You guys
Rob.
are kicking ass, so just be mindful. That's all I ask. I know I don't want to come across as negative. I'm not trying to be negative. So
And I don't want the city council to think that either. Rafi does come to our counter, we talk, we'll walk out on the sidewalk. We'll go try to address questions, anything, anytime, anywhere, so we're.
Appreciate you.
trying our
Thank you.
And
best.
then, please, next time, state your name and address.
oh. Raphael Peltekian, 14717 North Leanne. Unless you want the old address.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, my name is Tammy Scott, and I live at 7634 West Majestic Avenue. I just wanted to let you guys know that I came tonight because of the trees. It made me really sad to see all the trees gone, and I'm also friends with Paul and Shelley. And I just want to tell you guys how impressed I am that you guys really, really dug into what we can do and solutions and stuff. I wish we would have done it sooner. You know, I think all of us were a bit shocked when we saw the trees gone. And, you know, I'd have to say the last 15 years or so, we've made so many improvements to our city, and there are a lot of really beautiful things that y'all have done, and I just really appreciate it. And so sitting here and listening to you guys trying to figure it out, I love the idea of at least maybe having some small trees and planters. That's a great compromise based on the cost and everything. I would like to see some of those things looked at before, so we're not having those issues where we're having to dig things up and having more expense. But I think that you guys have done a really diligent job. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that. I'm sad to see the trees go, but I appreciate you guys are really trying. And I think that, you know, when the word gets out to the community that you really have looked at that, it will help. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor. Rick Pine, 5847 Bettis Court. You guys should have that memorized by now. When the new construction of Bettis, or Lancaster and Meyer Road, a lot of people out of Majestic are gonna cut through Brookshire. Have we any plan on having law enforcement go through there? Cause now we got new signs at 25 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And also, can you look at the city engineer? I know we just finishing up the Lancaster Huter roundabout.
Went through it today.
Yes, but they're throwing all their construction signs in my swells,
In the right of way?
in the Brookshire right of way, yes. But it's killing our grass. So is the city gonna be responsible of fixing the grass, or is it gonna rely on the Brookshire HOA? Please,
Well, first, that project is not a city project. Those signs are not city signs.
so I can throw them out in the street.
They are the highway district signs.
So I can throw them out in the street.
You should probably contact the highway district to have them removed as a HOA.
Rick, just reach out to me, I'll get you in touch with the Lakes Highway District.
Okay.
They're managing that project, it's outside of our corporate limits, but we.
But
communicate
it's
with
city
them.
limits, so I thought that the city was still involved in all that construction.
That
Where are you talking about?
Lancaster Hutter intersection
Lancaster.
is not
The,
city
the
limits.
signs are in the city limits
Yeah,
for detour signs.
for traffic control.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right,
But-
but they just took them out
But
and
those
just threw
signs
them wherever they
belong
wanted
to,
to.
yeah.
Okay, so can we look at a little bit more traffic
You might
control?
be surprised to know that the police department patrols the entire city.
Right, but I'm just letting you
Ask your
know
wife
that they're
about
gonna
that.
come flying through Majestic across into Brookshire to avoid it
Rick,
now.
are you worried about railway? Okay, they've cut
Yes,
down
I
on
am
that.
about railway, so I'm just letting kind of the
The chief is
board
here.
know
The chief is here
that
today.
maybe the chief can get a little bit more insight and
chief
maybe
knows-
get a little bit more budget for that when it happens, so they
Chief brought up to
more
me
patrols.
yesterday that I need to put more speed limit signs.
Hey,
on the
I-
railway.
already know.
So,
We already got tagged today, so, but just a little bit of pre-planning for that, so, thank you.
Anyone else who would like to address the council? Gone. 11, Mayor and Council report. Ken? John?
Just I'm working on putting together a project that I can present to the council on KMPO approved projects for the next. We've just passed the 2030 plan, so those projects that are going to directly impact Rathdrum over the next several years. So hoping to have that either at next month's meeting or the meeting in December.
Larry?
The only thing I have is please forgive me for my tardiness tonight. That's all I have.
John? And then Leon, you were going to present City Hall.
Yes. Thank you for the reminder, Mayor.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I drove in there yesterday. That's
I hope that the wiring and everything else here is good. This is a video. Hopefully it doesn't lag too long. This is a drone video that came in, or that I did this week on the City Hall project. Notice that the curb and gutter is all in what's considered the City Hall Park area for the parking there. There was a quick little lag on the camera thing there, apologize about that, hit the wrong button. Anyway, this is the hole for the new City Hall. As I go around here, the little inserts into the dirt in this area, if you can see where my mouse is for footings. We have our water lines that are coming into the City Hall, both fire and domestic. Our sewer line is already in for the new City Hall there. On the street up here that goes through, the curbs and gutters are all done. All of the concrete is poured. The ADA ramps are completed. Scheduling for asphalt for both the parking lot and the street and the pathway is scheduled for Monday. However, if it's raining, it'll probably get pushed to Tuesday. So all of those things are kind of happening right now as we're working on the project. So a lot different than what was it, about a month and a half ago or a month ago that we did the groundbreaking. All of this stuff has happened during that time frame, the curbs, gutters, and the hole and everything else.
Yeah, I drove in there yesterday. It was great. It was looking good.
So are the trees you see in that video, are they staying there?
Some of them are and some of them will not.
Most of them will. There'll be a couple that still need to be removed, but for the most part, a lot of them will be able
So in this video, and I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick, get a good shot of that, and pause it. The tree that's in this bottom right-hand corner there, there we go. This tree we're trying to keep there, for sure. All of the designs, doesn't have anything going in, sidewalks aren't going in, stuff like that. This whole area on this side is going to be parking lot for both public and staff, so anything that's in there won't. The back corner, let me see if I can get to a shot, there we go. Trying to make sure that it doesn't take off on me. But the back corner up in the upper left-hand corner, we're trying to keep all of those trees back there. That is in an undeveloped for future development of the city if needed type of place. So we're gonna try to keep all of those trees there. This tree that's over here to the right of the hole, that depends where the fencing is going to go, whether or not that will be still there or not. The fence, the trees in the park area, depending upon what is finally determined is going where they're going, may or may not be removed, so we'll see how that goes.
The commercial property out front,
Yes.
are we gonna do anything with that dirt there, or are we just gonna leave it like it is right now?
There's no plans for that area. The way that it is right now is pretty much the way that it is for a little bit. We'll need to make a determination as a city as whether or not we're going to sell those or lease those, and then market them accordingly. And then hopefully we can get some interest in that quickly, and then it can be developed. But we are putting in areas where there's entry points for a back road behind the buildings for deliveries. Water and sewer lines, all of that stuff is incorporated into the roads itself, so that we don't have to dig up the road when those things do get developed. A lot of the area south of the city hall that's gonna be considered future development for community buildings and stuff, we're going to irrigate and plant grass, because it may be 5 years, it may be 25 years before something happens there. And we'd rather have it green and available.
Okay, that was my reasoning for asking that.
Yeah, but
So
the
it didn't
actual
look tacky.
area down below in the commercial, don't really wanna invest a lot of money in developing that until we know exactly what we're going to be doing with that.
Thank you, good. Okay,
Leon, I thought when we started construction, it was supposed to also trigger construction of Radcliffe Street. What's the status of that?
Initial designs have been, if I remember correctly, Kevin, initial designs have
Construction
started.
plans for that first phase of Meyer Meadows, which includes Radcliffe, hit my desk last week. So the construction plans are there.
Okay, so we're not contingent on them constructing. It's already been initiated. Why are we doing both at the same time? Why wasn't Radcliffe ready to go at the same time that we were doing this?
No.
Was it triggered?
That's a different. This what we're doing is our project. The Radcliffe is triggered by our development, but it's not our development that's doing it, and that's
No, I know.
that was the point.
I know
So
that,
the
but it
trigger's
was
still
supposed
there,
to start
we're
at the
still
same
good,
time.
John.
Okay.
The water and sewer is gonna be in the ground, and the road's gonna be constructed in time for everything that we need. No one will have public access to any part of this 30 acres. So they can't use Radcliffe Road right now anyway if they wanted to, okay? So those are all part of the overall construction schedule. By the time we have our CO for the city hall, Radcliffe will be built.
What's the ETA for that?
By the time that we
Certificate-
get
so
moved into city hall,
possibly
July of
2027. Okay.
It has to be, all of that has to work together, because we have to tie into the water and sewer. It's all part of a continuing project.
how, is Radcliffe gonna go clear through or is not?
Yes.
Yes.
It is, okay,
They'll build it next year because they're on a timeline for their plat as well.
okay.
So they have a 1-year timeline on their
Okay.
plat, which has been approved, so.
Cool.
They have to do it this next year.
It'll all coincide with what we need it to coincide with for this project. We are in constant communication with the engineer on this project. He's probably sick and tired of me saying, are you still on schedule, are you still on schedule? Every conversation we have.
With that, I don't have anything else. Without seeing any further city business before us, without objection, we are adjourned.
Leon.